I'm delighted to welcome back Maria Morrissey, who is the author of The Grieving Grateful Widow. Welcome, Maria.
Hi, Elaine. Nice to see you again.
So for the listeners who didn't hear part one of our interviews recently, just give us a general gist of the book that you've written and why you've written it, please.
So basically, I was married for about 18 months before my husband passed away, but in total, we'd been together for 5 years. When my husband passed away, I found out that he'd been involved in some very dark things, that I'd never actually known the person who I'd been living with for almost 5 years. I thought that my husband was absolutely wonderful. I was heartbroken when he was diagnosed with cancer. However, when he passed away, the things that I found out were truly awful. And that is why I had to write a book to show people that we don't always know who's in our lives, who's closest to us. Psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists can be very, very clever at disguising themselves. And even if you sleep in the same bed as them every night, you don't always know who you're sleeping next to. So hence the name, The Grieving Grateful Widow. I would have been the grieving widow, but unfortunately, not long after my husband passed, I started finding out all of the very dark secrets.
So hence the grieving grateful widow. So you're a grateful widow as opposed to a grieving widow. That's just what do people who know you say about that title? I mean, it's almost comical, really, isn't it? I mean, it's sad, but how are people
responding? Most people have said it's a very clever title because, and they have been asked who thought of it, who thought of the name, and I thought of it myself because after my husband passed away, I started saying a lot of the time, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm still alive. I'm grateful that he's not alive. I'm grateful that I didn't discover the bad things about him whilst he was alive, because had I done that, I probably wouldn't be here now talking about it. So yeah, I'm grateful that I'm a widow, because without that intervention from somewhere else, it could have been a very different story for me.
So Maria Morrissey isn't your real name, it's your writing your pen name, isn't it, to protect some people who are still around and maybe may take offence at what's in the book. So give us some examples. Obviously, we don't want you to read the book in total, but give us some examples of how your husband was behaving that other people might perhaps recognise, and that they're also in an abusive relationship.
Yeah. So with my husband, he came across very charming, very charismatic, but from the very beginning, everything was over the top. It was like a whirlwind romance from the beginning. He seemed to be more caring, more loving than anybody else I'd ever met before. There were things like having so much in common. It was like being mirrored by him. So every single thing that I said I liked, whether it was television programs or music or even just views on moral or political views, my husband mirrored everything that I said, and it seemed amazing to have somebody that was so similar to me, and I'd never come across that before. He would go out of his way to spend time with me, turning up at all hours of the day and night, even if it was just to see me for 20 minutes here and there. And the amount of text messages I would get were absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And what I would think at the time was, oh, how sweet, you know, how lovely that I'm getting all of these messages through, you know, so nice. But when you look back, got a mosquito after you there, Elaine.
Mosquito, I'm sorry. I'm in Portugal and it's mosquito are a daily occurrence here. Sorry about that.
Oh no, it's okay. So, yeah, looking back, I think that having sort of 40, 50 text messages a day is extravagant. It's too many, and it actually looks obsessive rather than sweet and nice and lovely, which is what I thought at the time. But I think when somebody whisks you off your feet and you get carried away, nothing seems too much. He could have probably sent 100 messages a day, and I'd have sent 100 back. So at the very time it's happening, it all seems nice. But there were warning signs along the way, definitely, that things about his behaviour weren't normal.
So you said that you knew your husband a few years before you married. So none of this behaviour came out beforehand? None of this narcissistic, psychopathic type of behaviour? Or was it there but you just didn't realise it?
So I think some of it was visible, but there was always things that didn't sit right with me, things that I would question. However, my husband was extremely clever, and no matter what I thought and knew at the time, no matter what I thought I was catching him out on, he would always be able to prove me wrong, or make it appear to prove me wrong. So a lot of things were like illusions, but it's like what's happening now, you know, with the media. If you're only ever given one narrative and it's coming at you from so many different angles, and you've got nobody else to give you an opinion. I was isolated from everybody, which is something my husband did rather cleverly. Once you're isolated and you're only hearing that one narrative, you've not even got anybody to check that with and say to somebody, well, what do you think's going on here? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? You're really only ever going to get their version of events. And if they're so manipulative and so clever, which is what my husband was, he could make these illusions and really convince you that you're wrong, he's right, and that you're paranoid. Everything that you're thinking is in your head, which actually led to me having therapy, because he told me that I was so damaged, and that because of past relationships with abusive people, that I was actually using those insecurities against him, and that it wasn't really fair on him because I was using past experience, and this is why I was so paranoid and damaged, is something he would call me. And at one point he actually said that he didn't think there was any help for me, and that yes, I could go for therapy, but would it actually work? Because I was too far gone, he actually told me at one point, and I believed that at the time.
Incredible. So you were isolated from your family, from your friends. That was part of his manipulation, was it?
Sorry, it broke up then, Elaine.
You were isolated from your family and from your friends. You said that there was nobody to talk to kind of double check, is this normal behaviour? So was that all part and parcel of his manipulation with you?
Yeah. So what he would do, he could manipulate situations with family members. He could play very, very clever tricks to ensure that either those people broke relationships down with me, or I was convinced to break down relationships with them. People that did stay in my life were kept at arm's length. There were certain people that did stay in my life, sort of like my mum and things like that, but they weren't a big part of my life. We didn't see them. I didn't see them on my own, certainly, most of the time, just the way it happened, that I'd see them when I was with him. So it's not something you're going to speak to anybody about either. When they're there, you're not going to say, do you find this strange, what he does? Do you find that strange? You're not going to do that. So it was very controlled, but in a way that I wouldn't have realised at the time.
So I've read a lot of the book. I have to confess I haven't quite finished it, but it's riveting. The first I don't know, couple of 150 odd pages, I couldn't put it down. Literally, I binge read it, and then I ran out of time, so I need to catch up again. But from what I've read, it wasn't just your husband you were dealing with, was it? You had the mother-in-law from hell.
Yes, as I like to call her, the monster-in-law. People joke, don't they, and say the mother-in-law, oh, the evil mother-in-law, the monster-in-law. In my case, absolutely true. She was the monster-in-law, the mother-in-law from hell. You couldn't have met a meaner old lady in your life. Tiny little lady, very frail looking little lady, but pure evil. And that's a strong word to use. But I think when people read this book and find out the way she behaved while she was in my life, and how she seems to have known quite a lot of her son's behaviour, but covered up for him, I think you'll realise, and the readers will realise of what I was actually dealing with. I have got a section, if you'd like, I'll read a little bit.
Yes,
about
please
the
do.
monster-in-law. So this chapter's actually called Storm Barbara, because when she came into my life, especially when she came into my house at one point, she was like a storm. So arguing became a daily occurrence with Rob and me, as Barbara was not a good house guest. And if even I tried to bring it up, Rob would hit the roof. He was constantly reminding me of her age, that she was ill and had no one else. Yes, thank you. I know all that, but did she have to be such an ungrateful bitch about it? I would watch in amazement as Rob would take his mother a meal and she would just take it from him without so much as a smile or a thank you. Even worse, she complained about it, stating that she would not enjoy it because he shouldn't have put the beans next to the mashed potato. The more I approached the subject of Barbara's bad manners, the more arguments we would have. After a week, we finally got our room back, as Barbara had ordered a single bed and mattress for our spare room. However, she was not as pleased about the move into the spare room as we were. Repeatedly, she was commenting that the light was not good enough for her to read her books. She would like the curtains open to look out, but she needed nets so that people could not see in. Did she realise that this arrangement was not permanent? Why did she want to look out of the window with nets on it? She could only see the view of the side of my neighbour's house. Blood boiling, I came home one evening from work to find that my new net curtains from the kitchen were gone. And of course, Barbara the bitch had them in the spare room. I want a new light bulb, Barbara was telling Rob. This one is rubbish and I can't see to read. And I want to read my book. But Mum, this is a bigger, brighter bulb, Rob replied. I've only just taken it out of the box. I doubt that. Her tone was condescending. If that were true, I'd be able to see to read, wouldn't I? I heard Rob sigh and walk to our bedroom and take the bulb out of our light. Better, he demanded a few minutes later. Have you changed it? She demanded. Only I can't tell the difference. Look, Mum, this is the bulb from our bedroom. Rob was trying very hard to remain calm. You said you could read fine in there, and this is the exact same bulb. The light was right over me when I was reading. That was probably why it's not good now. That can't be right, Rob argued. The light fitting is in the centre of our bedroom, and our bed is pushed back to the wall. I doubt that. I didn't hear any more as I was going out to the shops, although Rob did ask me to pick up a new 100-watt bulb. I was tempted to refuse, but only agreed, thinking it would shut her up. I should have known better, as when I returned with it, she still insisted that it wasn't bright enough. Rob even resorted to taking the shade off. It's still not bright enough, Barbara persisted. I bet Julia bought one of those cheap, no-good bulbs. Outside, I gritted my teeth. Now, Mum, you were being ridiculous. I wondered if she didn't have bright bulbs at home, how could this new one still not be bright enough? A little while later, when Rob went to her house to feed the greedy cat, he returned with a desk lamp that she could bend over her book pages. Guess what? That was no good either. The door slammed soon after Rob told her it was tough, he had done all he could, and that there was no pleasing her. Somehow it resulted in another argument for us too. So there's a little snippet, and that's probably the milder behaviour of that woman.
So do you think his behaviour was as a result of the way he was brought up by his mother?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's difficult to say because you've got that nature or nurture. I believe that with the genetics, with his mother, I do think the kind of person she was, that was probably going to be there. And then the way that she would have treated him when he was younger. I know he'd told me that he was quite frightened of her as a child. He wouldn't have dared answer her back. I think she would have given him a good smack if he had done from a very young age. He did appear at times to still be a little bit frightened of her, even being a grown man. So I think she had a hold over him. I think she'd probably been a bully, been very nasty, very twisted, which showed even in her 70s. She was a very, very twisted, nasty lady. She didn't have anything nice to say about anybody at all. And I do think that's rubbed off on him. But I think there was probably issues there genetically from the beginning as well. And I just think the two combined created a complete monster.
I'm sure some of the listeners will identify with this part of your story, so that your kind of your explanation, they'll be going, oh yes, that happened to me, or that happened, to somebody I know, or whatever. So when you're in a relationship that's abusive, it's very difficult to know that it's an abusive relationship, because you kind of manage, don't you? You mold your behaviour, and as you say, you get to think that you're the one that's the problem, and you become apologetic. I mean, the fact that you actually had to resort to counselling, I mean, therapy, that's just, bizarre. So it shows the depths. So did the therapy work? Has it made a difference to you?
So the therapy I had when I was with him, the CBT, that was all about thoughts coming and going. So like cars. So if a car goes past, you see the car go past, but you don't then think about that car for hours on end. It's just there and it's gone. And you were taught to do the same with your thoughts. And it did help a little bit while I was with him. And I did try and train my mind to stop me overthinking, as he called it, about everything. So, but this time round, I mean, I'm undergoing therapy now, and the thought of CBT is not something I want to do, because I've got that memory of, I went there under false pretenses. Mm-hmm. I went there thinking I had a problem and that I needed that CBT. So now to have CBT, it doesn't sit right with me, because I was using it last time to teach me something that I didn't need to be taught. So really, it was to suppress my gut feelings, which I needed to listen to. So I'm a bit wary of going back to that. Not that it's not a good thing if you have got genuine issues overthinking, but I was overthinking because I had something to overthink about, and that was the difference. So I'm having trauma therapy now, and that is working, because the way I am with everything is I'm just totally numb. So even though I've written this book, even though I've read the book now, fully read it back to myself, I still don't really connect with what's in it. There's certain things that do trigger, but the majority of this, it's as if somebody else told me and said, this happened, and I wrote it down for them. That's how I feel. I'm that detached from it. And the trauma therapy is going to be tough, and it's going to make me face what's happened and deal with it fully, because it was good as a protection at the beginning. My brain went into shutdown. I went into this mode of total detachment. Nothing about this was real. I never had a husband. He didn't exist. He didn't live in my house. And that is how my brain protected me, I think, from a full-on breakdown at the time, because it was so huge. And although that was helpful at that time, it's not helpful anymore. It's not helpful to go through your life having no genuine emotion about things, and not being able to deal with those things, and feeling numb and feeling like everything's not real all the time isn't helpful, because you need to know that you need those feelings are suppressed somewhere. There's probably the grief there, which is something I argue with myself about, because I don't want to grieve over somebody so evil. But it was somebody I was in love with and married and was the love of my life. So there will be grief there somewhere. I don't know where that's hidden. So that would need to be dealt with. The abuse that I didn't realise I was having, that needs to be dealt with. There's so many, it's so intricate that it's going to take some breaking down to do that. But I don't believe I can fully move on from it until I face up and say, yes, I accept this happened. This is how I felt about it. And now I've dealt with it, I can move on. Because at the moment, it's all just tucked under that rug. And I just keep going and going and going. But we all know what happens with rugs. They move at one point and it's all going to come back and jump out on me. So I think I'm doing the right thing. I think I had to give it some time before I did the therapy and get strong enough in my own mind before I could do it. But yeah, I'm in a good place with it now, and it seems to be working.
So when is the book coming out, or is it out already?
No, a bit of both. The official release date is the 21st of May, but what I did, the ebook is set to go to people's devices on the 21st of May. But because of the paperback and delivery times, I did release it a little bit early to make way for those delivery times. And I've had so many messages and calls and pictures sent to me of people sat with it on the knee saying, look what I'm reading. And they got their copies before I did, to be fair. So some people have even read it all. I had somebody contact me saying they'd read it all over 2 days. They got it on the Friday. By Sunday, it was gone. They said it was the fastest they'd ever read a book. So that's nice. That's a nice compliment. So yeah, paperback, if people are ordering now, it's going to probably be with them in a couple of days. And I'm hoping anybody who can get down, I'm doing a book signing on the 19th of June. So anybody who's got the paperback, if they can pop down on the 19th of June, I'm at Reps Gym in Preston, and I'm there from 10 in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hopefully meeting people and signing the books that will look like this. It is surreal to be holding up now.
Right, it's The Grieving Grateful Widow by Maria Morrissey. Yeah. So that's on Amazon. I think you have a Facebook page as well, don't you, Maria?
I do. It's at Maria Morrissey, TGGW. So which obviously stands for the Grieving Grateful Widow. That's at Maria Morrissey, TGGW.
Okay, that's on Facebook, or the book on Amazon. So what would you advise to anybody who's triggered by your story, by the thought that they might also be in an abusive relationship?
So if anybody's reading anything in this book and they've got that fear, they've tried questioning the other person and they find themselves being sort of either ridiculed, told that they're the problem, but they just know in the gut that things are not right. Have a look around you. Who have you got around you at the moment? Have you been isolated from your family and friends? Is there anybody that you can speak to? Because even if you haven't got a friend or a family member that you think that you can go to, even if you ring a domestic abuse charity and just go through what is happening, say it out loud, because a lot of us don't say things out loud, or we don't put them together. When it happens, we say, that's a bit strange, and then you forget about it. Then something else happens and that's a bit strange and you forget about it. So I'd say write a list of the things that are keeping you awake at night. If you've got a friend or a family member that you can speak to, brilliant. If not, ring, you can ring the Samaritans and chat to them. You can ring, a domestic abuse charity. They're well trained to be able to advise you. And if you are in an abusive relationship, they'll be able to tell you very quickly. And sometimes you just need that recognition. You just need somebody else to sit with you and say, right, you're not going crazy. This is not normal behaviour. That's not normal behaviour. There's something not right. And once somebody says that to you, That might be the wake-up call that you need to get out of there. Because while you're only questioning that one person, the one person who's trying to deceive you, the one person who's giving you that narrative over and over again, you're never going to get the correct answers. If this person is abusing you, this person is lying to you, and you are never, ever going to get that abuser to say, well, actually, yes, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm controlling your money. I'm controlling your life. I'm isolating you from everybody. I want you to think you're going crazy. Well, they're never going to say that to you. They'll just keep convincing you that it's in your head, it's your problem, until, you know, some people get to such a low point that they're stuck with this all their lives. I've known women in their 60s that have been with the husbands 40 years, and, you know, it started off probably very subtle to the point that, you know, they've been in violent relationships, but it's got that far and they've been that broken down that they've said to me, I'll never leave them. Not because I don't want to, because I'm too scared now. This has been going on this many years. I can't get away from this person. So time is always of the essence. Before they can break you down any lower, take your confidence any lower, find that little bit of strength, speak to somebody. As soon as you've got just one person on your side and they make you feel that you're being believed and you've got that little bit of clarity, that's your first step to getting out of there.
Brilliant. And that's kind of like the world situation at the moment, isn't it? We're being told lies, we're being manipulated, isolated, told that, you know, told to live in fear basically, and reinforced at every which way you turn. So it's abuse, isn't it, on a grand global scale at the moment. So I look forward to reading the rest of the book. Where time is running out now, so just run us by again, Maria, where we can get hold of a copy of the book and your Facebook page, please.
Yeah, so it's available now on Amazon. You can pre-order the Kindle edition for the 21st of May, or you can order the paperback version as well from Amazon, and that is, once you order that's ready to be dispatched. You should have that within a couple of days, depending on where you live. The Facebook page is at Maria Morrissey PGGW. It is going to be available in some other bookstores and other places that I'm actually looking into at the moment as well. So there's a possibility there might be other places, but at the moment, your main place is Amazon.
Fabulous. Well, best of luck, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again because there's lots more to say about your story. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Maria.
All right. Thank you, Elaine. Take care.